Right now we are at Australian High Commission, New Delhi, at this beautiful premises of Australian High Commission. Australia is #1 educational destination since last 2010. Nepal is all the time standing at third row after India and China to send students in Australia. Since last April 2024, Australia has decided to cut down at least 50% of the international students, which will not only hit the ecosystem of university in Australia, but also decline revenue to government significantly. Latest changes on rules have been effective before the election happening in Australia. To get the first-hand information from Australian government, Info Plus Himalayan Television has flown to Australian High Commission here in New Delhi and have been taking an exclusive interview with Mathew Johnston, Minister Councillor, Education and Research, Australian Government Department of Education. Please allow me to welcome him for this special and exclusive interview. Today, we are at the Australian High Commission in New Delhi, all the way from Nepal, amidst an intense heatwave sweeping across the city. Despite the scorching temperatures, our guest, Mr. Mathew Johnston, Minister Councillor for Education and Research at the Australian Government Department of Education, had joined us to discuss the important work being done here. Mr. Johnston plays a crucial role in strengthening the educational and research ties between Australia and Nepal. In this interview, we'll explore the collaborative efforts in these fields and how they are impacting both nations positively.
Info Plus for genuine information.
Namaste, Mr. Mathew Johnston, and welcome to the show Info Plus on Himalayan Television. And thank you so much for letting us take an interview on this special and beautiful garden of Australian High Commission, New Delhi.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. It's lovely to have you here in New Delhi on Australian soil at the Australian High Commission. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Can you start this interview by telling us a bit about your role as the Minister Councillor, Education and Research at the Australian High Commission in New Delhi?
Yes, thank you for the question. Very happy to talk about my role. So hello to all viewers as well in Nepal. So although I'm based here in New Delhi, my job, and I work for the Australian Ministry of Education, strengthening relationships with countries across the whole of South Asia. So although I'm based here in India, I regularly travel to Nepal and work with stakeholders and colleagues in Nepal as well. So my job is about strengthening relationships between our two countries, strengthening opportunities for mobility for Nepali students to study in Australia or study at Australian institutions, opportunities for Australian students to have short-term study experiences in Nepal as well. And there have been quite a number of groups that have come through Nepal from Australia. Young Australians love visiting Nepal. So my job's really about finding opportunities for closer partnerships between our institutions, stimulating research cooperation between our universities as well. And we work government to government to identify, priorities for both governments, mutually beneficial policies and settings to really benefit youth and to benefit Nepali students in particular.
Can you give us an overview of what makes Australia an attractive destination for the students for the further studies? Why students should choose particularly Australia for their education?
Yeah. I mean, students are spoilt for choice nowadays for places to go and study. Even in this neighborhood of South Asia, there are very many good institutions that are all looking to attract the best and brightest students from Nepal and from all around the world. Australia is one of the top destinations for international students. We're consistently, in the top 3 of, globally desirable destinations for international students. And I'm really pleased that many hundreds of thousands of Nepali students have placed their trust in Australia and have studied with us, acquired their qualifications, gone back to Nepal and contributed to the economy there in Nepal as well. So we're really pleased about that. I think there are 3 key things that really stand out, that make Australia stand out comparative to other countries.
Okay.
The quality of our education is extremely high. Our quality of life is also very high. So the weather is very favorable. The population is very multicultural. There are people from all over the world there in Australia. Australians are very warm and welcoming people as well. So the quality of life and the opportunities to get work experience and to work while you study, but also to acquire skills that are really globally relevant for the world of work is really strong. And then the final area that I really think sometimes people forget and students don't always think about when they're looking at rankings or looking at cities or looking at employability outcomes and those kind of things. And that is, international students invest a lot of time and money in studying with countries, and Australia doesn't take that for granted. We are the only country in the world that has legislation that protects international students studying in Australia.
Okay.
So our student protections are second to none. We lead the world in that, and we make sure that students get what they pay for and they get the outcomes that they expect from our international education institutions. So these are some 3 areas why I think Australia really stands out as a destination, and we've been very popular with the Nepali students, which we are very grateful for. And we are always looking at ways to make sure our education is top-notch and exactly what international students want.
What scholarship opportunities does Australian government offer to the students who wants to pursue their further education in Australia?
The first I would say is our universities are quite generous. They give fee reductions and small scholarships, like partial scholarships, can be 30-50% to a very large number of Nepali students, particularly those that are very meritorious. So that's one. There are lots of different fee reductions and scholarships, part scholarships that are available from our universities. Our universities also reward really smart, meritorious students, and there are so many very smart young people in Nepal. Our universities grant those based on a history of academic excellence, commitment to serving communities and society, and a lot of extracurricular activities our universities look at. For Nepali students, to make it easy for you, we have a search engine for all available scholarships in Australia on our studyinaustralia.gov.au website. So there is a search engine there. You can go in, search by course, by institution, by city. It's really good. It's kept up to date, and it's a one-stop shop for you to find all sorts of scholarship opportunities. Now, Rebecca, we were talking about the excellent Australian ambassador to Nepal, Felicity Volk, and we're both sort of admiring so much
Yeah.
about her before.
Yes.
But in her capacity as ambassador to Nepal, she offers what we call the Australia Awards,
Okay.
which are really very elite, very exclusive, and very highly desirable scholarships for really good students, for government officials, for young leaders across Nepal to go and get an experience in Australia in their chosen field. So some of these are fellowships, some of them are full master's programs. So each year, the Australian Embassy in Kathmandu offer these scholarships for meritorious Nepalis. And I think there's been some really incredible people who've been able to study with Australia and undertake fellowships there. And, you know, that's more the benefit for the Australia-Nepal bilateral relationship.
Could you please update the recent visa policies for the
Absolutely.
international students, including any recent changes they should aware of, and the post-study work opportunities available in Australia for the
Absolutely.
students?
Absolutely. A really topical question. And I'm sure many of your students are very well versed in the visa changes. I find when I talk to international students, they know even a step ahead of me what's going on in terms of visa settings. So, I mean, it's been very public. The Australian government launched a new migration strategy in December last year. And over the course of the first half of this year, have been implementing changes around the genuine student test for visas. So really, students, genuine students, you don't have anything to worry about. We are putting back into the visa system and back into international education greater integrity.
Okay.
There are additional checks that are being undertaken by both the visa processing officers, but also our universities to ensure that genuine international students get the best quality education they can in Australia. So a number of things have been changed. The amount that students need to show in terms of earnings and access to living expenses has increased, and that's increased because the cost of living everywhere in the world has increased, and unfortunately Australia is not immune to that. So students need to show more availability to funds to cover their living expenses in addition to their tuition fees when they come and study in Australia.
High Commission has increased the fees for the students. Many students have been facing, confusion about, because most of the people, though they have a very strong educational background, still it's hard for them to afford, isn't it, in some point? So what do you have to say on this regard?
So in this regard, as I was just saying, the increase in the amount of available living expenses a student needs to be able to show in applying for their visa is about protecting the student and making sure that when they go to Australia, they have enough funds to support themselves so they can study, and so they're not taken advantage of when they become vulnerable in workplace situations. Of course, you have mentioned the increased visa fees. That's only just happened 2 weeks ago, so it's too early to say about what impact that has had on student lodgement numbers or the number of students wanting to study in Australia. What I can say is in some conversations I've had recently with education consultants, the changes happening the first half of this year, they've noticed some decrease in lodgement numbers by a small amount, but the number of students receiving visas and the number of refusals have been declining, and the number of grants have been steadily increasing. So I think there has been a lot of change, but those changes are now bedding down. Students and consultants are understanding it much more. So we're seeing, that sort of situation starting to stabilize, and we hope in the second half of this year that trend will continue.
Okay. What support services are available to help Nepalese students adapt to life and study in Australia, and how do these services assist in their integration into the Australian community?
Yeah, thank you. It's a really good question and a really important thing for students to think about. So think about, where are your support structures? Where are your supports think about your well-being. What do you need to be successful in your studies? So it's really important students think about these things before they make applications to study abroad, whether it's in Australia or any country. But what I'd say for Australia, there's a number of support services available. Those that are provided by Australian universities and education institutions, for example. Every single institution has an international office that is there and available to make referrals to mental health support services, any sort of study assistance that's required as well in terms of extra tuition, any sort of social supports are available as well. If students have questions about career guidance, if students have questions about their visa, how to obtain part-time work, all of these sorts of support services are there offered by the universities. In addition to that, the Australian government offers a number of support services as well. And this is very unique. No other country has these things. So we have an international student ombudsman, which should something unfortunately go wrong, students can go to the ombudsman, make a complaint, and they can get rectification of their concerns. If they have concerns about their well-being, they have concerns about the quality of education that they're receiving, they can go to this service and make a report, and those claims are investigated. We also have something called the Tuition Protection Scheme. Historically, sometimes if a student is unable to study in the course that they are enrolled in, whether because the institution closes or the course isn't offered, we have a tuition protection scheme, which then will refer students to another course. We'll place them in another course free of charge, or their course fees will be fully refunded. Okay. Now, that's only if something goes wrong, and that's in the small number of cases. But what this all means is Australia is a very welcoming place. We take student well-being and student protections very seriously, and we make sure that students get what they pay for. The other thing that for students to sort of think about, we have international student associations as well, which really provide a good advocacy and a voice for international students with the government as well. And of course, in Australia, there are lots of Nepalis. So lots of community organisations are there. There's lots of support that you can get from your own community there in Australia as well. So we really think about this very much, and we put in place a lot of programs to make sure international students feel the most welcome they can.
As you mentioned, in Australia, there are so many Nepali students, and there is a large number of Nepali communities.
Yes.
The Australian High Commission is in New Delhi. Why not in Nepal?
So we have the Australian Embassy based in Kathmandu. The Australian High Commission is an embassy, but because we're in a Commonwealth country, India is a Commonwealth country, we call it a High Commission. So my position, the Education Minister Councillor, is based here because I work with lots of countries in South Asia, and Delhi is very connected to go to all these places. So we're very well represented in Nepal with an excellent ambassador and a really good team. And I'm very lucky in that I get to visit many times a year, as we were talking about before. This year alone, I have visited twice, and there's probably 2 more trips to come. So we're here in India because we work in India, and we have our immigration colleagues based here. But I also have a team that are here, and we travel to Nepal regularly, and we work closely with the Australian Embassy there in Kathmandu.
What support services are available to help Nepalese students adapt to life and study for Australia? And how does these services assist in their integration into the Australian community?
Yeah, so some of the services I was mentioning before are, they exist there for international students delivered by universities, but also from community organisations and the Australian government. But to the last part of your question about how does it help them integrate, students are met on arrival at airports by government officials and also by the university or an education institution. They can help with finding accommodation, providing advice on accessing part-time work as well. So students are met on arrival. We have very comprehensive orientation programs, settling in programs, Many universities establish buddy systems and mentorship programs for students as well. So all of these things are there, available for students if they are having any issues. They know they're there, we promote them well, and it allows students then to really access the help they need when they need it.
Nepal will be a viable option for transnational education. And what steps should Nepal take to host Australian university branches?
Yeah, really good question. As part of my government to government work that we do with the government of Nepal, we've had a number of conversations about how can we promote partnerships between Nepali institutions and Australian institutions, and to really find models that allow Australian institutions to deliver qualifications in Nepal so that Nepali students can get access to international education from home and can get access to this. So there are some already good examples of this happening. So Gates College in Kathmandu delivers Australian qualifications from our public vocational education system, TAFE New South Wales. So they offer commercial cookery there in Kathmandu. And I was really lucky in that I got to visit that institute when I was in Kathmandu 1 month ago. I had a delicious lunch, got to meet some of the students there. I got to meet the amazing and inspirational founder of that institution. And that's a very established partnership delivering Australian qualifications or transnational education in Nepal. But to do more of this, and I've said this to government of Nepal, we just need some clarity around what are the terms for Australian universities delivering Australian qualifications, either with Nepali institutions or separately into Nepal. There are some partnership models that are there, and we'd be really keen to see more of that. But to be really honest, for Australian institutions to come and deliver in Nepal, some certainty about regulations and clear rules to allow people to invest time and money to come in is really beneficial. But we're seeing more and more partnerships come. Earlier, I think last year when I was in Kathmandu, I met a group of Australian nursing students who were doing some clinical placements in Nepal. So they had come over from the University of Tasmania and were there in Kathmandu doing some work as well and having some work experience, which I think is really good. So transnational education can happen both ways, but it really needs clear rules, clear regulations and certainty for us to be able to do that. We're continuing to find some unique models that will work and really hope to be able to get some success in that in coming years.
What do you think some of the major challenges that Nepalese students who are pursuing their further education in Australia, and how do you think they should overcome with those challenges?
Yeah, look, really good question. So I think a number of students will find challenges in finding suitable. Sometimes they find challenges in finding, suitable accommodation that's very affordable. Sometimes students may face challenges around finding appropriate part-time work to help support themselves. Maybe some other challenges are around, adapting to a different culture. Understanding the Australian accent sometimes can be a challenge, and, a different academic culture. So in terms of some tips that I would give to Nepali students is, make sure you really do your research. There's a lot of services available, such as our Fair Work Ombudsman, which has some really clear fact sheets about the minimum wage in Australia, how to make sure you're protected and not taken advantage of by employers. So there's a lot of resources available to students to make sure that when they undertake part-time work, they get the pay they're supposed to, that their tax is all okay, they get advice about these sorts of things. So do your research, have a look at the Fair Work Ombudsman and the International Student Ombudsman. There's lots of information available to international students to help with managing any challenges around part-time work. Universities have accommodation officers that help you find secure and safe student accommodation. Our universities have a lot of accommodation available that students can rent as well. We can see the peacocks here. Yes.
Very beautiful.
They're really
yes.
very beautiful. We're very
They're
lucky
all
here
around.
at the High Commission. Yeah, there's the male and the young chicks that you see
Oh,
grow
so
up as well.
beautiful.
Yeah, we're really lucky at this place to have these
Yes.
around. Sorry, I know I'm not answering your question, but I thought maybe the viewers like to see the little chick peacocks we have here.
Yes. So beautiful.
I think we want to make sure that students can overcome those challenges very much. So do some research, make sure you're prepared. We're very committed to integrity for our students and making sure that you are studying and are able to study and get the qualifications that you are paying for.
Looking ahead, what new opportunities or initiatives can Nepalese students expect from Australian educational institutions or the government?
Yeah, good question. So I think, personally, I'd like to see some, more opportunities for transnational education in Nepal. Australia has a lot of experience doing this, and actually, viewers might be interested that 2 Australian universities have already established in India. So already there are some opportunities for studying with Australia a little bit closer to home here in India. But let's see whether we can get more partnership models like what we've talked about happening in Nepal. We will continue to offer high quality education. We will continue to be welcoming of international students, particularly Nepali students as well.
How does Australia view its role in South Asia, particularly in relations to Nepal, and what strategies are being implemented to strengthen the ties between two countries?
So I think earlier in our interview we talked about the many numbers of Nepalis and Nepalese living in Australia, and that diaspora community is so important for the deepening of understanding between Nepal and Australia. And I'm really happy that a lot of that diaspora growth has been driven by education. Nepalis studying in Australia, going back to Nepal, bringing their qualifications back to Nepal, opening businesses, investing in that relationship. But also many Nepalis have settled permanently in Australia and are contributing to our economy, to our community, to our culture as well. And there's everywhere in Australia you can see the influence of Nepali diaspora. So for international education, Nepal is the third largest source of international students studying in Australia. So first is China, second is India, by sheer numbers, third is Nepal. So it's really important. That really allows greater interconnectedness of our countries and greater understanding between the two. Nepal and Australia governments have annual senior consultations from all aspects of the partnership and the relationship as well. Ambassador Volk has a number of programs that are delivered in terms of aid programs delivered in Nepal as well. So there's a number of things which are in place to really strengthen the relationship.
Recent policy of Australian government seems that they want to cut off the number of international students. Would you like to elaborate on this regards? So many students from Nepal are interested to apply to Australia, and they just want to go to Australia rather than choosing other countries.
Yeah.
So the number of students has been cut down, isn't it? So could you please tell us something on this regard?
Actually, and I'm really happy you asked me this question because there's been no cuts yet. And the government's policy is not about cutting. Actually, the government has been consulting in Australia about a new international education strategic framework, which is really about focusing on quality, focusing on integrity, and ensuring that students get a really good study experience. So I know there's a lot of rumours about cuts and we're not welcoming. Australia is welcoming, but we want to welcome international students in a much more managed way. We want to make sure international students are not exploited. We want to make sure that there is integrity in our international education system, because unfortunately in previous years, there have been some instances, not necessarily for Nepali students, but some instances of students who have been vulnerable, have been exploited in the workplace. We don't want that. We want students, genuine students, good quality students, to come to Australia to get a good study experience, to access post-study work, or to come back to Nepal and really make a strong contribution to their country. There'll be more announcements to come in coming months about the numbers of international students which will go to Australia. And I would just encourage all your viewers just to don't believe everything you hear and just wait. More information is coming about what this will look like. And I can reassure you that at the heart of everything the Australian government does is a focus on a good quality student experience and the well-being of the Nepali student.
Australia currently has more of its universities in the global top 100 than any other countries, except for the US and UK.
Yeah.
Australia consistently rank in the top 3 preferred education destination among students and parents in countries that send the most students abroad. Does this initiative will help to do negative branding of Australia education in coming days?
Yeah, I mean, we're really pleased with our Nepali students in Australia. We're really pleased that we've been the top destination for Nepali students for a great many years. And I think, at risk of repeating myself, the reason for that is because we really respect international students and we really value the contribution they make, and we put a lot of effort into ensuring they get a good quality education. All of that is staying the same. All of that is staying the same. And, you know, our universities, as you said, really outperform in international rankings. We only have around 41 universities, yet we have 7 or 8, depending on the ranking system, in the top 100 in the world.
That sounds interesting.
It's really, it's really impressive. So, no, I don't think there's any negativity around the Australian international education brand. The quality will be there always. The student experience will remain very good. And, you know, we will continue to welcome international students to Australia. So I don't think there's any negative impact on that. The fundamentals of Australian education are all the same.
How do you see the student market in Nepal? And as per my information, number of applications from Nepal has been declined significantly in recent days, isn't it? Which Australia also wants, I guess, the students, which they once have been rejected as well. How have you accessed the trend of Nepal in terms of receiving quality students to study in Australia?
So, I mean, Australia wants genuine students. We want good quality, genuine students. And we have been clear about that for many, many decades. All of our rules are about attracting and retaining genuine, high quality students. So we're happy that Nepali students are still choosing to study with Australia. You mentioned that there maybe the lodgements have declined somewhat, but the information I have also says that the approvals are very consistent, and Nepali students have adjusted to some of the changes in the visa settings we've seen in the first 6 months of this year. So the market is adjusting, would be my summary and my summary answer to your question. The market is adjusting to different scenarios. It's not correct to say Australia is deliberately trying to reduce numbers. Australia just wants to make sure that we are attracting good quality, genuine students, and that those students get the education that they pay for when they get to Australia. So, you know, if you look at the data, between January and April this year, over 56,000 Nepali students are currently studying in Australia already. 60% of those are in university level, 40% in vocational education. So they're very good numbers. You know, that's still a very significant number of students. The changes you've alluded to are still under consultation in Australia. So I really do implore everyone to just wait and see in the next month or so. Greater clarity is coming in terms of this further change around the international education strategic framework. Don't always believe what you read or hear, that it's, in terms of what Australia is doing and why. We are looking at how we can manage growth sustainably to ensure that students get good quality education and have a good experience studying in Australia.
What message do you have for Asian students and parents regarding the recent Australian policy changes and Australia's appeal as study destination?
Okay, so Australia still offers one of the highest quality educations in the world. Our universities are ranked very highly in all international ranking systems, which means that students will get a high quality education that is globally relevant, that allows you to get the jobs you want, to contribute to your community, to your family, and to your culture and to the economy. We continue to protect students. We still have a very strong system of quality assurance to make sure students get what they pay for in Australia. Our quality of life is still very high. Students get access to developing their skills through part-time work and through work integrated learning opportunities at our world-class universities and our world-class vocational education institutions as well. In terms of some of the recent policy changes, as I've said before, do your research. There's a lot of information on the Department of Home Affairs website. There's a lot of information on the Study in Australia website. Do your research. Really seek to understand what the changes have meant for you, but really seek to understand the truth of the changes, because there are a lot of rumours that circulate that aren't always entirely correct. So do your research, but fundamentally, Australia is a welcoming country. We want to welcome genuine students. The changes we are making is about ensuring integrity in our system and in terms of managing the sustainability of the numbers of students in Australia studying with Australia. So my key message is to parents, to agents, and to students. Thank you for your support for Australia. Thank you for your faith in us and our education system. And please do continue to consider Australia if you are considering studying overseas. But please make sure you do your research. We want to make sure when you come to Australia, you have the best possible experience you can.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for meeting me here at the beautiful Australian High Commission in New Delhi. And I was really pleased you got to see our peacock children here at the Australian High Commission as well. It was really beautiful. Thanks very much for your time.
Info Plus, for genuine information.
I hope we have tried our level best to cover wider aspects of Australian education and recent changes on visa policies. This interview will surely enlighten our viewers, especially students, parents, and educational agents in Nepal. Thank you for watching the episode, and please give feedback about today's episode. I will bring another fresh episode to you with renowned dignitaries in next episode. Till then, I'm signing off for today and see you in next episode. Namaste.
Info Plus, for genuine information.